Hey there, y'all. As you know, I'm a run coach, not a life coach. And somehow I've become a protest coach and a protest mom since May, which is not something I necessarily signed up for. That one day I went for a run and decided to go pay my respects at George Floyd's vigil. But here we are, 2020 continues. One of the lovely people I've met during this. The good thing about 2020 is Miss Shauna over here. Would you like to introduce yourself and say hi?
Hi, yes, my name is Shauna Foster, and I work for About Face Veterans Against the War. Since the protest, actually since Ferguson, we are a national group that's often called on to provide security and counseling for folks who want to organize some sort of security culture, safety culture for their protest so that they can protest safely.
So basically, when I talk about the marshals and security, I bet like this is who I'm talking about.
Yeah,
she's got a lot of friends. They're smart. She's got a brother too. They do smart people stuff. So rather than me trying to reestablish instincts that are long dormant, I just say, "Hey, Shauna, this is like all you do, and you do it so well."
Thanks. Yeah.
So
yeah, I've been to a lot of different protests since 2006 when I first joined About Face Veterans Against the War. Yeah.
Keep saying that because I still call it turnaround when you're not there and have to stop myself. I'm like, I don't even know where I've made that up with.
If people are interested, they can go to aboutfaceveterans.org and you can learn more about veterans. We started out as an anti-war veteran group. We're still anti-war, but we really understand that war is caused by the perpetuation of violence through many different systems. So that's why we're strong supporters of Black Lives Matter and, all kinds of. We were huge at Standing Rock. Like there's just all kinds of things that we are protest and partners with so that people can actually be treated equally under the law.
And one of the ways that you do this is by specializing in understanding the ways of white power organizations, like Proud Boys and the 3 Percenters who have been trying to establish a presence. I roll my eyes when I say that, but establish a presence in Denver as of late.
Yeah, I would say that the difference this time around with them is especially, I don't see too much of them anymore, but in the beginning, do you remember the Boogaloo Boys? Yeah. So there was, white supremacist groups who wanted to instigate violence with the police on purpose. So I know for decades, the FBI has been reporting that white supremacists have infiltrated the police force. So you see a lot of times the police force being chummy with white supremacists, or those people are the good guys, whereas Black Lives Matter protesters are the bad guys. Now, of course, not all police, right? But this seems to be like a dynamic that I wonder how the Denver Police Department is addressing. Like, what are they doing about white supremacists that are coming into their ranks? And the Boogaloo Boys this was a little different, that they wanted to start a fight with the police to start and instigate like a race war. So really, the tactics of white supremacists this time around seem to be around acceleration, they call it, where they want people to destroy property, to be violent, to destroy things. And I'm not going to tell people, not to bring guns or what have you. I just like, I would just recommend against it. I know I just contradicted myself there, but there's just specific instances where you have to really think about what does it mean to bring a gun and what does it mean for white supremacists who are bringing guns this time around, right? Really, I think when it comes to security and safety culture, when you're dealing with white supremacists, 90% of the time what you're going to be doing is not like saving people from an active shooter. You're going to be doing anti-harassment. A lot of times these white supremacists are coming with videos. There's live streaming on YouTube. They're trying to get people to dox and harass. And they'll come and get you when they feel like they can win, which is like if they find out where you live or if you're in a small group by yourself at the protest. That to me is the real danger with white supremacists. Otherwise, their open carry thing, they really are like a terrorist organization where they work by trying to instigate fear in you so that you don't hold your protest because you know that there's going to be an open carry demonstration at the same time. In the city of Denver, open carry is illegal, so it'd be nice if the police would enforce that when they see people doing open carry. And so concealed carry is a little harder to enforce because obviously you can't see it. But I think that if people started answering white supremacists who are open carrying with weapons of their own, that it doesn't really turn out very well. It doesn't go the way you think you're going to go because, again, most white supremacists are interested in intimidation and harassment. They're not interested in doing open shooting kinds of scenarios. They typically disavow anybody who ends up doing mass shooting anyway, because they don't want their organization to be tied to instigating violence in that way, right? Like there's some sort of veneer of respectability that most of them still try to have to do. And then when you add the layer of the Boogaloo Boys wanting to incite violence on purpose, to smear the peaceful protests, or the righteous riots, or the things that people are doing, you want to make sure that you are not on that side of the coin. So when should you bring a gun, right? Like what would be a good time to bring a gun?
Especially if everyone on Twitter is telling you, please show up. And if you can, please show up armed.
I feel like
anyone how to protest.
Right. I feel like the UAP Newton Gun Club is a different kind of story, or the modern day version of the Not Fucking Around Gun Club that had a demonstration in Louisville and in Stone Mountain in Georgia. I mean, these are Black people bringing guns to really challenge people's assumptions, or white supremacist assumptions about who should have a gun and why. It's like you never really see the NRA running to defend Black people's rights to carry guns. So if you have something in mass like that, where you have hundreds of Black people showing up with guns, and those leaders are saying you should bring a gun too, that's different, because that is a different specific political tool. There's a public pressure that they're going for there. There's a PR thing. And I'll say that the Not Fucking Around Club, they worked with police in Louisville. They made sure that everything was safe ahead of time for their members to be there, and they still had an accident. So while I say that form of protest is really effective, there's a time and a place, and it's way different than, we're going to meet the white supremacists. We're going to take their bait and meet violence with violence, and we're going to bring our own guns in an uncoordinated way, without a plan, without talking about it. As a veteran myself, I will never bring a gun to a protest, because the safety is in numbers. And I know really what it's about is anti-harassment. So when a white supremacist, even with open carry, is coming up to you and they're filming you, if you play copyrighted music, that kind of screws up their filming, because YouTube, they take down any videos that have copyrighted music in it. And I feel like that's a more effective way of protecting people, because then you're protecting people from being doxxed than bringing in an open carry and expecting that white supremacist to get scared. It's an escalation and retaliation. And what we've seen with guns being used at protests in Denver and all over the nation, it's not turning out well for anybody. There's nobody who has been rescued by the quote good guy with a gun, right?
If anything, that good guy with the gun is looking at life in prison, and that makes me really sad.
Right. Like the guy in Aurora who was trying to stop the Jeep from running over people.
Save lives.
The police are against him, right? And he's looking at big time. In Portland, you had the guy who was sympathetic to Antifa, who killed a Patriot. I think he was part of the Patriot Prayer, right? Mm-hmm. And he ended up getting killed by the police himself. And he was on his Facebook confession, when he was saying, yes, I'm the one who killed that Patriot Prayer member on Saturday night. He was saying, that guy was coming at us with a knife, and so I had to protect myself. But then he ends up getting killed by the police. And so really up until that incident in Portland, the incidents in which guns are being used are being largely carried out by white supremacists, and the people who are the most violent are the white supremacists. And that shows that the Black Lives Matter folks who are doing the protests are disciplined and really pushing their aims of securing equality and equal treatment for Black people, of defunding the police. And that's really where the focus needs to be. So when you're thinking about bringing a gun, think about, how does bringing a gun actually meet that end goal that Black organizers have been visibly working their asses to organize off of for decades now, right? Or is it about you feeling safe?
Yeah.
So really think about, what is the end goal here, and who is asking you to bring the gun, and what is their plan? What is their safety plan? So that's why I was kind of saying, like, I would never tell somebody I would never recommend to not bring a gun, but I wouldn't recommend to bring a gun either. It really depends on the specific situation, what is the political goal that you are going to be able to meet? What is the protesters' goal? Who is asking you to do it? And what is their plan? And how does you coming armed really achieve that plan? Because I can tell you, if you think bringing a gun will achieve the goal of making you and the people you care about more safe, that has not been shown to be happening. Like empirically with these protests most recently, and looking at these things, that's not what's happening for people who bring guns to, especially white people who are bringing guns to protests to counter white supremacists. Like the Not Fucking Around Club, that's great. That's wonderful that they have open carry protests. And if there's people who want to organize a chapter of that here, I will support that. I'm not bringing money towards it. But it's a different political goal, right? Of what they're doing and what people are doing and what we're trying to achieve here. So that's kind of my recommendation about really what is the security concerns. I think the actual most concerning thing that we have is cars being driven into crowds. Yeah. And so I would recommend like vehicle marshaling for every march, making sure there's cars on our side in front and behind and on the sides. To make sure that we don't like have that Jeep situation happening again. One protest I went to, there was somebody who drove on a sidewalk and severely injured somebody else. There's been like 50 or so incidents of cars being used in this way, and it's really hard to get justice for these kinds of things. So that to me, it's like, look at where there's things that scare you, and then there's things that are actually happening. Right. And so plan for the things that are actually happening, and the things that scare you, like the gun versus gun shootout scenario, nobody really benefits. And with the amount that we're seeing the police not treating people fairly about who brings a gun, right, then you're really putting yourself at a lot of risk. And maybe you're ready for that. Have an excellent lawyer. Right. So just make sure that you're meeting the larger goals of what the protest is doing. You're not hijacking it.
Absolutely. Because what I want to make really clear here, there is a black leader who down in the Springs is calling for people to show up, because I'm not speaking to her or to her people. I'm not talking to you. Have a gun and you can carry. I'm not talking to you. My name is MK Fleming. I'm a coach, and I am one of the admins for the local Wall of Moms Denver Facebook page, as well as the Wall of Moms Denver Plus private Facebook group. We show up to things all the time. We have been getting, since the calls to show up and be armed started coming out earlier last week. Honestly, this is the second time we were supposed to sit down and have this conversation. But the pressure has been on to not just show up, but to show up armed. And green protesters, people who are new to this, don't necessarily understand that all protests are dangerous. Any crowd of people can turn dangerous in a heartbeat. And it's whether you're at a concert or frankly at a grocery store. I mean, if you've ever been somewhere where they thought there was a fire and everybody tried to go out the same door, the fire was less dangerous than getting trampled by the crowd. So anything can happen but we don't think about that. That's not a deterrent to going to the grocery store. And I would beg it for that not to be a deterrent for you to go to these protests, because there is safety in numbers. We can't promise that nothing will happen, but we also can't promise that you're mitigating any existing risks by taking a gun that you are not comfortable owning or using. And I say that's the difference between the leader in Colorado Springs, her making the call out. I'm sure her people are great with guns. That's terrific. The Wall of Moms people who are like, well, I've been seeing these, so I'm supposed to show up with my gun. It's my husband's gun. I don't really. I'm like, yeah, no, she wasn't talking to you. No, wasn't nobody talking to you. Leave that gun at home. Oh no, not you either. No, you don't need to bring your child who is of legal age and uses a gun a lot, according to you. No, leave your kid and that gun at home. So I would also, more than anything, if there's a question in your mind, was this person talking to me? Do I need to? That's who I'm talking to. If you're white and there's a question, then the answer is no. But please do show up, because the people who are good and are well-versed, they cannot do their job well. You are reducing the chances of them having a shootout and a gunfight, but sheer force of numbers. If there are 1,000 people at this protest and 50 Proud Boys show up at 5:00, they're going to be like, we don't have the numbers, and they're going to go home, just like an anarchist or any protester would if that was trying to do a specific direct action in the middle of the night, for example. So we want to make sure that we outnumber them. We don't necessarily it is not your duty to attempt to outgun any of them.
Yeah.
Right.
I would say, like, my rule of thumb for, going to any protest and doing anything beyond just being there and marching is like, what is the quality of the relationship that I have with the people who are asking me to do the thing? Right. Like, if I don't know this person and they're just somebody posting on Twitter telling me this thing, and I don't know what the plan is and I don't know what the political strategy, and I'm not sure how I'm going to meet it. Now, maybe after I go to the protest and I meet that person and they explain it to me and they say, this is why you bringing a gun is important. And even if you're a casual user or something like that, well, that's one thing. But you don't have to, establish the relationship first and understand what is going on, and make sure that you're educated about the risks and rewards before you go out there. But yeah, if a Twitter user is just saying, hey, come, and you don't know them and they're saying, hey, come on down and bring guns, investigate that, I think, a little bit more, and make sure that you bringing a gun is actually going to be helpful to their cause overall. I don't know.
That was important because as you, as somebody who's good with a gun, I was like, Shauna, we're going to this protest. They said to bring guns, so I got my husband's. How would you react?
Yeah, I would say, I would actually want to meet the organizer who's, issuing the call for guns, or at least, read like an explainer of like, we are going to meet in formation in this kind of way. Here's our safety protocols. We're open carry, but there's no ammunition in the chamber because in Denver you can't open carry, like that there's some sort of sense that they have a strategy for using it other than like, let's open up the wild, wild west, which I would be like, okay, personally, I'm not comfortable with that. Right. But I do believe in like the overall philosophy of like wall of vets and wall of moms.
Yeah.
Even though Black people have been veterans and moms this whole time.
Yeah.
Like you think about the birth of the civil rights movement, it's Emmett Till's mother who says, I'm having an open casket so you can see what they did my son. Moms have been there the whole time. But being asked to use our privilege against white supremacists, putting our bodies in the line the way Black bodies are in the line every day, I do believe in that. And I want to hear about how my specific putting my body in the line is going to help advance these goals, is going to protect people, and isn't just some sort of white saviorism.
Absolutely. Because I know last week when I was screaming on all of social media for the end of the event that we were at where the Proud Boys were supposed to show up and didn't. We got our digital intel said they were 2 blocks away, saw the size of us, and then waited till after dark when they could outnumber us. And that is when the DPD backed us, the protesters, into the Proud Boys. So that, to answer your question, how is DPD responding? That's how DPD is responding. But I tell you that to be like, still, even then, the police were like telling the Proud Boys, don't draw your guns. We appreciate your support, but no. So not to say that nothing will happen, not to say that nothing can happen, just saying that it is my firm belief that by showing up, and even though you're scared, showing up, you are increasing the number of bodies, and that reduces the risk of other people trying to take drastic measures to harass, intimidate people. Because when I made the call last week, that was to counter a lot of people who had said, stay home, there's danger. And I was like, no, you just put all of our lives at risk.
Right.
Because there were people planning on coming after work who didn't, because they heard a call from someone more senior than me saying stay home, which put all of our lives in danger. We were lucky that shout out to Black Bloc. A whole bunch of Black Bloc showed up after that. And it was just like a sea of yellow shirts and Black people in Black Bloc. And that kept everything safe. And our friends were able to continue their protest.
Yeah. So, yeah. I would say, outside of the, specific safety plan, security plan, or political goals to bring a gun, I feel that at protests, like keeping people safer has always been a strategy of, anti-harassment and de-escalation. And, if you're open carry, it's very hard to de-escalate somebody else who is open carry. Right. So, but, I'm not the one organizing these protests. I'm not the one calling the political shots. That's just been my general experience. So I think that if there's that kind of call and you're interested in it, like first investigate, see it out, weigh the risks, and see, and do that if that's what you're called to be doing.
Absolutely. That was beautifully said. All I wanted to communicate was if there's a question in your mind about whether or not you should go, I say go. People need you.
Right.
If there's a question in your mind as to whether you are failing people by showing up and not bringing a gun, I would say that no. Because if there's a question in your mind, then the answer is always, even the people who are great with guns are going to be like, no, leave that at home. I got this. So
yeah. Well,
cool.
great. Well, thanks for, lifting this issue up. I hope I was able to answer somewhat, and I'm happy to be corrected, by other folks who are watching this video, and, especially people who are doing the hard work of organizing the protests. I really have a lot of admiration for folks, and that's why I'm in this. I want to be in this with my body, my life, as much as they have to be in it. People have to be in it. So, I'm happy to hear more and keep exploring this issue. But for me personally, I will probably never bring a gun to a protest.
Yeah, and you're good with them. I've seen it. You know, you move. I'm just saying. God. I was like, now I got to know how you put this on Bumble. It's got to be in there somewhere. You talk
let's talk about politics last after we know each other a little bit. Maybe.
I love it. Well said. And like I said, both of us are open to correction. If I've just said something that puts you and your comrades in danger, please let me know. That was not our intent whatsoever. What we're trying to do, to me, I jumped on Wall Moms in the first place in the name of harm reduction because I was like, right now with things heating up, the last thing Black people need is a whole bunch of white women being like, here I come to save the day. Now what do I do? Now what do I do? Where do I stand? Oh my God, is that a spray? Does he have something in his pocket? What's going on over here? Oh my God. It's like green people ruin it for the seasoned people in a lot of ways because they don't know. There's no handbook. There's no orientation. And it's really hard to keep your mouth shut when you're scared. So the last thing we need is that dynamic with guns this weekend, or even worse, people staying home because they don't know what to do, which is what a lot. This is how we got here, right? White people were told it is dangerous and scary. Stay home and don't get involved. That we need to do the opposite right now.
Right.
But if I put you in danger by saying these things, do let me know. I apologize for that. All I wanted to do is make sure you didn't have a whole bunch of white women who weren't sure what to do. So they did what felt like the right thing, which is show up with a gun they don't know how to use and are scared to death of.
Yeah. And I would say, the protests, you got to think about that. It's been like 90 days of unrest. And I would say
100. That's why this weekend's a big deal, Shauna. It's 100. We're celebrating 100 days.
Yeah. So, it's the longest period of civil unrest. And, it has been largely safe, even from like COVID. White supremacists have shown up with guns, but they have, by and large, with the exception of the 17-year-old, right? By and large, in Kenosha, by and large, they haven't really used them. And so you think about, if you're really afraid, the probability is so low. And I think you really ought to be taking the risk, because it's one thing to say, oh, I support Black Lives Matter, unless there's guns involved. Then really, how down are you with it, right? Like, I still think by and large, like, as long as you do not, let the fear drive you, then the white supremacists don't work, and they will continue to be outnumbered, and they will continue to fail at instigating a race war or whatever it is. And we will continue to support our aims and objectives. I'm very proud of Colorado. We're the only state that's actually passed getting rid of qualified immunity out of all the states, right? And that is so huge. And it's not even
replicated. No one touched it.
They're trying to get that replicated, right? Those 8 reforms. And so I think we need to continue and keep the pressure, continue to set the example. I'm just incredibly proud and amazed by the Black organizers and politicians and people who made that happen. And I want to continue to support that. And just let you know that, or have you think about what are you afraid of and what is empirically happening, right? Like, make sure that we are separating that out, so we don't, that we keep our eyes on the prize as it is, and make sure that we secure liberation for Black people.
Absolutely. Yay. Thank you. That's Mandy. She was one of the organizers last weekend. Yeah, we ran them all off with a bunch of, like I said, yellow shirts and umbrellas. And the reason for the umbrellas is that the streamers can't get their shot and the doctors can't get their shot. But I think I'm going to be going tonight with the boombox now. That
for disabling cameras, like little cat lasers. Yeah. So there's a lot of stuff that you can do to that's anti-harassment and de-escalation that really helps keep everybody safe. And just put the white supremacists and the Proud Boys and all those people in their place. They are just trying to scare you because they're scared themselves, honestly. Not to empathize with them, right? But they should abandon their racist ways and definitely should stop they should stop trying to stop the long arc of justice, right? That we are currently a part of and we get to support. So huge shout out to organizers for making it happen. I'm glad to be there and put my body out there, and we can do this safely and reasonably and just calm down a lot of the anxiety.
Absolutely. Well, you've calmed down all of my anxiety because I felt like we needed to say something to these white women who are like, I feel like I'm doing the wrong thing, so I'm going to bring my husband's gun. And I'm like, please, God, no, she wasn't talking to you. So I think you cleared a lot of that. And I can't wait to put your body in my swimming pool this weekend.
That'll be fun.
Let's do it. Happy Labor Day, everybody. You are coached. You are loved. And if you are at home and resting, you're winning at life. If you're at the protest, you're winning at life. But as long as fear is not driving your decision, especially a decision to do something you're not ready to do, then you are probably doing the right thing and you're definitely killing it, killing the things that need to be killed anyway. I need to stop talking. We're going to do that. Bye.
Bye.